when AK-9 dog vanished into a raging storm for 3 days. No one expected him to return, let alone carrying a newborn baby, still alive. But what truly shook the nation wasn't the child. It was the horrifying truth about where she came from. This isn't just a story about a smart dog. It's a journey of instinct, sacrifice, and an act of rescue so powerful, it exposed a secret no one was meant to find. Welcome to Heroic Animals, the channel where extraordinary stories of brave animals come to life. Here, we don't just tell what happened. We take you deep into the moments no one saw, the life or death decisions, and the silent heroes who changed everything. Hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss a story that will leave you breathless. The rain started on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, Graybrook was drowning. The little mountain town, tucked between 2 ridges and flanked by thick pine forests, was used to storms. But not like this. Rivers had swollen over their banks. Trees snapped like matchsticks. Roads became rivers, and no one came in or out for 2 days straight. Deputy Rachel Mendez hadn't slept in 36 hours. She lived off stale coffee and radio static, dispatching rescue crews and checking shelters every few hours. But her only constant in the chaos was Axel, her 4-year partner, a powerful German shepherd with eyes like polished amber and instincts sharper than most humans she knew. Axel had saved hikers from cliffs, sniffed out missing kids in blizzards, even found a drowning man once by leaping into the lake. Rachel trusted him more than anyone else on her team. And when the call came in about Bethany Carver, she didn't hesitate. Bethany wasn't a local. She was a traveling nurse volunteering at the flood shelter. She had left the center late that night to check on an elderly evacuee and never came back. Her car was found the next morning, half submerged at the bottom of a dirt road that had collapsed in the storm. Door open, no blood, no footprints, no Bethany, just silence. Axel was loaded into the rescue truck. As soon as he smelled the front seat, he let out a low, alert bark. Then, he ran, straight into the woods. Rachel followed, trudging through ankle-deep mud, flashlight slicing the gray dawn. Axel darted between fallen branches, leaping over streams, pushing deeper into the forest than any GPS wanted them to go. 30 minutes in, Axel stopped. He sniffed the wind, ears perked. Then, he bolted. "Axel, hold up," Rachel shouted, her boots slipping in the wet underbrush. But he was gone. No sound, no barking, no rustle, just gone. Rachel searched for an hour, calling, circling, marking trails. The rain returned by late morning, and the tracks disappeared with it. She radioed in. Negative visual on Axel. Last seen East Ridge, heading solo, continuing on foot. By nightfall, search crews were looking for both Bethany and Axel, but they found nothing. Day 2 passed in a blur of false alarms and rising water. Drones grounded by weather. Helicopters rerouted. All they had was a few paw prints in the mud, leading nowhere. Rachel barely spoke. She barely ate. Her partner was gone, and nobody knew why. But she never gave up. She went back every day, retraced every step, called his name into the trees. And then, day 3. It was just after sunrise when a volunteer ran into the firehouse, panting. "He's back. Axel's back." Rachel dropped her coffee and bolted outside. Axel stood at the edge of the parking lot, drenched and limping, but standing. His fur was matted, his harness torn, one paw bleeding. But what made the world stop was what he carried in his jaws. A wet, dirt-smeared baby blanket. Wrapped inside it was a newborn. Eyes closed, silent, pale. Rachel fell to her knees, arms out. Axel walked slowly forward, deliberate, gentle, and laid the bundle into her hands before collapsing at her feet. The baby twitched, then let out the softest cry. Alive, not a scratch on her. No one knew where Axel had gone. But wherever it was, he had gone alone. He had gone in a storm. And he had come back, with a life no one knew existed. Inside the fire station, the baby was laid gently on a stretcher, wrapped in warm towels, as the town's only pediatric nurse checked her vitals under the glare of emergency lanterns. With no hospital access and electricity down, they worked with what little equipment they had. She's stable," the nurse whispered, tears in her eyes, low body temp, slight dehydration, but she's breathing, somehow. Rachel stood nearby, soaked from the knees down. watching as Axel refused to leave the baby's side. He was trembling from exhaustion, his chest rising in short bursts. But his eyes never moved from the child. "How old is she?" Rachel asked softly. The nurse hesitated. "Not more than 3 days." Rachel's heart skipped. 3 days. The exact amount of time Axel had been missing. "You're saying she was just born? Out there? There's no medical tape, no hospital tag." And the nurse gently lifted the edge of the blanket. The umbilical cord was cut, but not surgically. More like she was delivered outside. Maybe even alone. That word hit like ice. Alone. The room went quiet. The baby had no ID. No name. No claim. She hadn't been missing, because no one knew she existed. And yet, Axel had known. Had found her. Had brought her back. A miracle. People whispered. But Rachel didn't believe in miracles. She believed in instinct. By afternoon, Special Agent Lila Dorsey arrived from the State Bureau. Grim-faced and straight to the point. She reviewed the report, examined the baby, and questioned Rachel thoroughly. "No one in town reported a missing infant?" Dorsey asked. Rachel shook her head. "We double-checked every shelter. No pregnant women recently. No births in the last month. No local medical records for a newborn." Dorsey glanced at Axel, who now lay bandaged in the corner, eyes still fixed on the infant. "So, this baby didn't just get lost. She was placed, or hidden." Rachel nodded slowly. "And Axel found her before someone else did. They pulled Axel's GPS collar logs from the past week. But the signal had dropped the moment he disappeared into the woods. No coordinates, no trail, just silence. Wherever he went," Rachel said, "he didn't want anyone to follow." But Dorsey had seen things like this before, too many times. Trafficking, illegal adoptions, even underground births. They use rural areas because people don't ask questions. She murmured. Backwoods sheds, abandoned cabins, mobile birthing setups, and sometimes, they disappear the babies. Rachel finished. Dorsey nodded. But Axel had brought this one back. That night, Rachel sat beside Axel in the darkened hallway of the fire station. A blanket wrapped around her shoulders. "You did something incredible," she whispered, scratching behind his ears. Axel let out a quiet sigh. His eyes fluttered, then opened again. But then, his body stiffened. He sat up, nose lifted, then, barked. Once, low, sharp. Rachel jumped to her feet. "What is it, boy?" Axel paced to the door, scratched it gently, then looked back at her. "You want to go back?" He barked again. And in that moment, Rachel realized something. Axel wasn't done. He hadn't just stumbled on the baby. He had remembered where she came from. And someone, or something, was still out there, waiting. The next morning, Rachel stood at the edge of the forest. Flashlight in one hand, radio on her shoulder, and Axel by her side, vest fastened. Leash ready. "You sure you're up for this?" she asked him. Axel didn't move, just sniffed the wind and stepped forward into the trees. Toward the place only he had seen. Toward the truth no one else had found. Yet, the forest was quiet. Too quiet. Axel led Rachel and two search officers along a narrow animal path that twisted through thick pine and slick mud. The rain had finally eased. But the aftermath still lingered, branches broken, water pooling in low pockets, and mist curling like smoke between the trunks. They were 3 miles outside Graybrook now. No trail markers, no GPS signal. Only Axel's nose kept them moving. Rachel watched his every step. His pace was steady, but alert. He paused often, sniffing moss, circling shrubs, checking wind direction. It was like watching a detective with 4 legs work a scene no one else could see. Then he stopped. Without a sound, he turned sharply off the path toward a cluster of trees that seemed to lean inward like they were hiding something. He sniffed, snorted, then began to dig. Rachel knelt beside him. "What is it, boy?" The soil was soft, freshly disturbed. She helped claw it away until her fingers struck something hard. Metal. A rusted lockbox, about the size of a lunch pail, wrapped in plastic and twine. The officers unsheathed a multi-tool and popped it open. Inside, a wad of unmarked cash, a burner phone, several wrinkled photos, and a folded birth certificate. Handwritten, no hospital seal, no attending physician, just infant, female, no name, date of birth, undocumented, status, property, Rachel's stomach twisted. They weren't hiding her, they were moving her. The photos were worse. Grainy shots of infants on a mattress, no blankets, no clothing, taken indoors under poor light. A clipboard visible in the background, with price figures scrawled beside each name. A system. Axel let out a low whimper and walked to a nearby stump. He sniffed around it, then barked once. Sharp. One of the officers called Rachel over. "Ma'am, you'll want to see this." Behind the stump, under a half-torn tarp and some firewood, was a plastic storage bin. Inside, diapers, formula cans, 4 pacifiers still in packaging, and a stained, folded paper with a checklist. Rachel read aloud. Delivery route, Clara. Final prep, 3/14. Pickup, delayed. She stared at the name. Clara. The baby didn't even have a legal name. But the people who meant to sell her had already picked one. It wasn't just logistics. It was inventory. They radioed the location in and marked the perimeter for evidence collection. Rachel crouched beside Axel, who now sat calmly next to the emptied lockbox. "You knew," she whispered. "You knew she wasn't lost. You knew she was left." Axel blinked slowly, nose twitching in the damp air. He pawed gently at the tarp, then looked toward the northern ridge. Another direction, another trail. Rachel stood. "You want to keep going?" Axel barked, and she followed. The terrain got rougher. Tree roots clawed at their boots. Mud turned to moss, and then to stone. Half an hour later, Axel stopped again. He stood at the edge of a shallow clearing, where the trees opened up just enough for moonlight to filter in. Rachel scanned the space. Torn tarps, blackened firewood, and a small structure, barely a shack, made of corrugated metal and rotting plywood. No one spoke. Axel advanced cautiously. Rachel drew her flashlight. Inside the shack was a single wooden table. On it, medical gloves, cord clamps, gauze, and stained rags. The stench was unmistakable: blood, bleach, and ammonia. A makeshift birthing site. No running water. No medical waste bin. One officer muttered, "Someone was delivering babies out here." Rachel stepped to the back of the shack where a single, low crib stood. Empty, but used. Blankets still warm. Fresh milk stain on the wood floor. And in the corner, an empty paper tag. It read only, CB03, Clara Bethany. Rachel turned to Axel, her voice cracking. "She was born here." Axel growled, deep and steady. Because something else still lingered. Something darker. Something not yet uncovered. The shack stood like a wound in the middle of the forest. Silent. Still. But something about it felt unfinished, like they were only scratching the surface. Rachel scanned the perimeter with her flashlight, her boots crunching over pine needles and wet ash. The metallic tang of bleach still hung in the air. The inside had clearly been cleaned, but not recently. Whoever operated here hadn't expected anyone to come back. And certainly not a dog. Axel paced slowly around the outside of the shack. Nose low, body taut, his tail flicked once, then stilled as he stopped by a patch of moss behind the structure. He sniffed, pawed, and then whined. Rachel approached. "What is it, boy?" Axel began to dig again, carefully this time, like he knew exactly what he was looking for. Within minutes, the soil gave way to something solid, a slab of warped plywood. The officers helped pry it up. Underneath was a crude trapdoor, just big enough for a person to crawl through. A hidden space. Rachel drew her weapon. "Flashlights ready. Let's go." The crawl space below reeked of rot and mold. It was barely 4 feet high, walled with stone and lined with splintered shelves. On them sat plastic storage bins, some sealed, some broken open. And inside? Blankets, diapers, baby formula, dozens of empty bottles, a few pacifiers still in packaging, small stuffed toys missing eyes or limbs. And worse, photos. They were pinned to a wooden beam, like trophies. Each image was a baby, some wrapped in towels, others held by unseen adults. No faces shown, just tiny hands, feet, the curve of a cheek. Some had codes scribbled in the corners. CB03, MH02, LY11, each child tagged, tracked, processed. Rachel's skin crawled. "These aren't just abandoned kids," she said hoarsely. They were being organized. One officer held up a notebook, its pages water-damaged but legible. Transfer logs, Names, times, locations. It's coded, but this is a ledger. And on the final page, written shakily in blue ink, they're not orphans. They're inventory. Rachel's chest tightened. She stepped back, needing air. But Axel wasn't done. He sniffed the air again, then darted toward the far wall of the crawlspace. There, behind an old tarp, was a metal storage case. Locked. The officers broke it open. Inside, a woman's handbag. Water-stained, torn. Inside it, Bethany Carver's ID, her badge, her notepad, her cell phone, dead but intact, and a scarf, soaked in blood. Rachel knelt, hands trembling. She found this place. She confronted someone, Dorsey said quietly, stepping down beside her, and they made sure she couldn't talk. Axel stood guard over the bag, silent, as if he understood, as if he remembered. Back in town, forensic teams were dispatched immediately. The site was locked down, and federal agents began cross-referencing the baby codes with missing child reports from surrounding states. But nothing matched. No one had ever reported CB03, Clara, missing. Because no one outside that forest ever knew she existed. That night, as Rachel sat beside Axel under the glow of the firehouse porch light, she looked down at the old scarf resting in her lap. Bethany had been trying to stop this. Alone, unarmed, outnumbered. But somehow, Axel had found what she couldn't bring back. A life, a name, and maybe, just maybe, a crack in the silence that had let this operation go on for years. Rachel scratched behind his ears. You found her, boy. Axel didn't respond, just turned his head toward the north again. Toward the town. Toward the person who had signed Clara's birth certificate. The one who wasn't in the forest at all, but had been in Graybrook the entire time. The sun barely touched the rooftops as Rachel followed Axel down Maple Street, a quiet, tree-lined road on the edge of Graybrook. It was the kind of street where people left porch lights on all night. Where neighbors still waved to each other. Where trust was unspoken. That's what made the destination so jarring. Axel stopped in front of a white Victorian house with green shutters and a "God bless this home" sign nailed to the mailbox. The mailbox read, Drive. S. Lucas. Rachel stared in disbelief. Dr. Sylvia Lucas had been the town's only pediatrician for over 30 years. Retired now, she still ran health workshops, donated to the food bank, and checked in on new mothers. She was the kind of person you called first when a child was sick. But Axel didn't see that. He saw scent, and he was growling. Rachel knocked. No answer. Knocked again. Harder. Still nothing. She radioed in, requesting immediate backup to 415 Maple. Suspected link to infant trafficking network. Entering on probable cause. Axel pushed at the door. It creaked open. The house was too quiet. Too clean. Not in a warm, lived-in way, but sterile. Curtains pulled tight. No photos. No clutter. Like someone had erased every trace of humanity. Axel moved straight through the hallway. Past the living room. Into a back study. Rachel followed, weapon drawn. The desk was perfectly arranged, except for one open folder. Still warm from the touch of a hand. Inside, fake birth certificates. Copies. Names. Codes. CB03. MH02. LY11. She flipped through pages. Logistics. Travel plans. Notes written in shorthand she recognized from the field. It wasn't just a connection. It was command. And then she saw it. Clara's name. CB03. Final prep. 3/14. Delivery pending. Assigned to. Family B. Denied. Alternate pickup. TBA. Clara had been assigned like a package. Rachel's hands curled into fists. Axel barked once, low and sharp. He stood at the far end of the study, pawing at the floor. A hidden hatch. She pulled it open. A narrow staircase led down to a basement, cold, dim, and lined with shelves. She turned on her flashlight. That's when the bile rose in her throat. Cribs. 4 of them, empty, perfectly clean, perfectly spaced, each with a file folder hanging from the railing. Each folder with a photo, a code, and a delivery status. There were toys in the corner. Not played with, stacked, organized, wrapped in plastic. The room felt more like a warehouse than a nursery. On the far wall, a framed certificate hung crooked. A medical license, now expired. Dr. Sylvia Lucas. Back upstairs, Rachel opened the bedroom closet. Inside, 3 packed suitcases, a box of burner phones, and a purse that was missing one thing: drive. Lucas herself. She's gone, Rachel said into her radio. Left within the last hour. Likely on foot or picked up nearby. She knew we were closing in. Agent Dorsey's voice crackled back. Understood. Sending highway alerts. Issue bolo on Sylvia Lucas, age 68. Approximately 5 feet 3. Gray hair. Consider armed with knowledge, not weapons. Rachel closed her eyes. Heart pounding. Clara had been born in a forest. Hidden like evidence. But her paperwork, her planned transfer, had started right here. In this house. In the hands of a woman Graybrook had trusted to bring babies into the world. Sylvia hadn't just known. She had orchestrated it. And now, she was gone. Outside, Axel sniffed the wind. He turned toward the woods behind the property, toward the service trail that led out of town. He barked once, then looked back at Rachel. She understood immediately. She didn't run far. Axel barked again, sharper. And with that, the chase began. The forest behind Dr. Lucas's property was thicker than most expected. The trail started narrow, carved by deer and erosion, but it deepened quickly into a winding descent, perfect for disappearing. Axel led the way, muzzle low. His movements were fast but focused. No wasted energy, no hesitation. Every few feet, he'd pause, sniff the air, and adjust. The trail wasn't just physical, it was invisible. Written in scent and memory. Something only Axel could follow. Rachel and Agent Dorsey jogged close behind. Boots pounding wet earth, radios crackling faintly. She's old, but she's clever, Dorsey muttered. She had this exit planned. Rachel nodded grimly. She packed for it. She's not scared. She's prepared. An hour into the woods, they found the first sign. A discarded sweater, rolled up, wedged between rocks. Rachel picked it up. Still warm. She's close, Dorsey said. But Axel was already moving again, deeper, faster, toward a dip in the terrain where trees gave way to a clearing no one knew existed. There, nestled beneath a ridge, stood an old hunting cabin. Small, weather-worn, shingles missing, curtains drawn tight, and smoke, faint but real, drifting from a metal chimney pipe. Rachel ducked behind a log. Pulling Axel with her, she signaled Dorsey. There. Movement inside? Dorsey whispered. Rachel nodded. She's holed up. They flanked the cabin, slow and quiet, weapons raised. Rachel took the rear window, where she saw a flicker of movement. Sylvia Lucas. Pacing. Alone. Then, a gun. Small. Silver. Trembling in the doctor's hand. Rachel motioned to Dorsey, armed but unsteady. Dorsey called out first, voice clear and sharp. Dr. Sylvia Lucas, this is Special Agent Lila Dorsey. Step outside slowly. No one has to get hurt. Silence. Then the front door creaked open. Lucas appeared, wearing a thick coat. The pistol in her right hand hanging at her side. But her expression wasn't fear. It was calm. I told you, she said, voice soft and even. You're making a mistake. Rachel stepped forward, gun still raised. Put the weapon down, Doctor. Lucas shook her head. I didn't harm them. I saved them. Dorsey's voice turned cold. You trafficked infants. No, Lucas snapped. I rescued them. Her voice trembled now, not from panic, but passion. Do you know what happens to babies born into nothing? Addicted mothers. No records. No homes. They vanish into a system that doesn't care. I gave them a way out. Rachel's hands clenched. You sold them. I found them families. Lucas hissed. Do you think those babies would rather die alone in shelters? Be bounced through foster care until they break? Axel let out a low growl, stepping between Rachel and the doctor. Lucas looked at the dog, then down at the gun. She raised it, slightly. Axel barked, lunged. In a single motion, he leapt forward and knocked her arm sideways. The pistol clattered to the ground. Rachel rushed in, tackled her down, and slapped cuffs onto her wrists. Lucas didn't fight. She just stared up at the sky, chest heaving, and said the words Rachel would never forget. I didn't steal children. I freed them from lives they were never meant to live. Back in Graybrook, news of Lucas's arrest spread like fire. The search site at her house turned up even more records, linking her to out-of-state operators. She had been running the supply line quietly, methodically, for years. And no one suspected. No one except a dog. Axel. The same dog who had carried a newborn through 47 miles of rain and hunger. The same dog who refused to stop until the truth surfaced. That evening, Rachel sat beside Axel in the back of the fire station. The baby, now named Clara, slept soundly in a warmed crib just feet away. "You found her," she whispered, "and you found all of it." Axel's head rested against her knee. He didn't move. He didn't need to. His work wasn't done yet. But justice had finally started. The room was silent but warm. A soft hum from a portable heater. The gentle ticking of a wall clock. And in the center of it all, little Clara, wrapped in a yellow cotton blanket, her chest rising in steady rhythm. Rachel sat beside her, chin resting on folded hands. After everything, the forest, the storm, the betrayal, there was this. A child. Alive. Safe. But the name tag on her crib still read, "Baby girl, unknown." It didn't feel right. She deserved more than that. Rachel glanced at the photo taped beside the bed, an image of Bethany Carver. Smiling in her nurse's uniform. Taken just weeks before she vanished. Her scarf had been recovered from the birthing shack. Her ID buried among Lucas's hidden files. Her body found days later in a shallow grave near the ridge. Wrapped in plastic. Bethany had uncovered the truth. And she had paid with her life. Rachel stood, walked over to the birth certificate recovered from the forest, the one marked CB03. She picked up a pen and, slowly, wrote a new name in bold letters. Clara Bethany. Clara, for the child who survived. Bethany, for the woman who tried to save her. The next day, the story broke nationwide. Infant trafficking ring uncovered in rural Graybrook. Hero K9 leads police to underground birth network. Dog carries newborn 47 miles through flood to safety. Axel's photo, mud-caked. Eyes sharp. Jaws gently holding the soaked baby blanket, ran on every major news outlet. Social media exploded with hashtags. Hashtag Axel the hero. Hashtag find Clara. Hashtag dog that didn't give up. The world didn't just see a rescue. They saw a symbol. Federal teams fanned out across multiple states, tracking the web of fake birth records, illegal placements, and off-grid birthing centers tied to Sylvia Lucas. Several pickup points were located, some as far as 3 states away. Arrests followed, licenses were revoked, funds frozen, but Clara's case remained the spark, the one they couldn't bury. And Axel? He became a legend. At the Graybrook Town Hall, a small ceremony was held. The mayor, teary-eyed, stood at the podium with Rachel and Agent Dorsey by her side. Clara, in the arms of a vetted foster mother, slept peacefully throughout. "We have heroes in uniform," the mayor said, "but today, we honor one who doesn't wear a badge, but saved a life no less." She turned to Axel. His instincts pierced through silence. His loyalty crossed mountains. And his heart led a child out of the dark. The room erupted in applause. Axel sat calmly at Rachel's feet, blinking into the camera flashes. A ribbon was placed around his collar, a medal dangling just below his chin. He didn't bark. He didn't wag. He just looked at Clara, as if checking, still safe? Still safe. After the ceremony, Rachel found a moment alone outside. She leaned on the railing, looking out at the ridge where Axel had first disappeared. The sun was setting now, spilling amber light across the trees. She felt a nudge at her elbow. "Axel," she smiled, placing a hand on his head. "You did something no one else could." He leaned into her palm, warm and steady, but something about him felt restless. Like he wasn't done. Not yet. As if somewhere, out there, was another scent, another cry no one could hear. And he would listen for it. Always. 6 months passed. The snow had melted from the ridge above Graybrook, and spring was slowly crawling back into the mountains. The trees were greener, the sky clearer, but the town still whispered about the storm that had changed everything. They called it the rain that brought Clara. The child who had no name now had a future. Clara Bethany had been officially adopted by a foster mother from a nearby county, a nurse who had held her in those fragile first days and never let go. The process had been unusually fast. Few fought it, because Clara wasn't just any child. She was a symbol, a survivor. And she owed her life to the quiet figure who now padded gently across the fields near Rachel's home every morning. Axel. The investigations had gone national. Sylvia Lucas, awaiting trial in federal custody, had refused to speak further after her arrest. But the evidence didn't need her words. Dozens of false birth records were traced to hidden clinics and shell organizations posing as family services. The ledger found beneath the shack had cracked it all open. Several members of a cross-border trafficking ring were arrested within weeks. Midwives, falsifiers, couriers. Some pled guilty, others vanished. But the darkness had been pierced. And all of it had begun with a dog who wouldn't come back empty-handed. Axel was awarded the Medal of Valor for Service Animals, presented by the governor in a private ceremony. Photos of him with the baby still circled online, cropped into paintings, turned into murals, even etched onto a bronze plaque placed just outside the Graybrook fire station. To Axel, for seeing what no one else did, for carrying hope when hope was lost. Tourists stopped to take pictures. Reporters came, then left. But Axel? He stayed the same. Quiet, focused, faithful. Rachel often found herself watching him in the early mornings. He would stand on the ridge, staring out at the woods like he was waiting for a sound only he could hear. No barking, no pacing, just listening, as if somewhere out there was another secret. Another child, another trail not yet walked. And maybe there was. One morning, Rachel walked up beside him, coffee in one hand, the other resting on his back. "You know you can rest now," she said softly. Axel turned his head slightly, then looked back toward the trees. And Rachel smiled, because she understood. Some heroes don't know how to stop. They're not built that way. 1 year later, Clara took her first steps. Her adoptive mother sent Rachel a photo, the little girl toddling across the grass, wearing a yellow sundress and holding a small plush toy shaped like a German shepherd. The card simply read, "She doesn't let it go. I think she remembers." Rachel placed the photo beside her badge, then knelt beside Axel and whispered, "She'll always remember you." He didn't move. He didn't need to. Because in a world full of people who turned away, he never did. If this story moved you as much as it did us, if you believe that no voice is ever too small to be heard, and no life too insignificant to fight for, then Clara's story is one you'll carry with you for a long time. Speech balloon. Tell us what you felt watching this. Would you have believed a dog could uncover such darkness? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to Heroic Animals. Because out there, right now, another animal is doing the unthinkable. And we're here to bring their story to you. Bell, turn on notifications. Orange heart. Share this with someone who still believes in silent heroes. Until next time, stay safe, stay kind, and never underestimate a dog's heart.